In a world of magic and might, the city-state of Alkenstar is a bit of an anomaly. Where much of the world relies on the strength of their spellcasters, the conniving of political games, or the blessings of their gods, Alkenstar relies on devastating firearms, explosive alchemy, and advanced contraptions to survive in this harsh land. This isn't just a philosophical stance. In a land where magic just doesn't work, storms of chaos can roam the land, and neighbors are raising undead armies, casting even basic spells can have great and terrible consequences. Technically, Alkenstar is the name for the entire Grand Duchy and the capital city, but for the purpose of this video we'll be covering Alkenstar City proper and a few areas found to the west of the city. The rest of the Mana Waste and Dawngun Hold will have a few mentions, but will be getting their own videos, so do subscribe if you want to hear more about the Wild Wastelands or the Ancient Masters of Gunpowder. But before we have another mutant raid or a saloon shootout, let's begin our briefing. Alkenstar is smack dab in the middle of the no man's land between the Magocracy of Nex to the north and the necrotic nation of Geb to the south. The conflict between these two nations has not only caused the scarring of the Mana Wastes, but also the founding of Alkenstar. Scattered throughout the Mana Wastes are remains of this ancient war, with forgotten war machines, half-cast spells still arcing across the sky, and abandoned installations that once hosted some of the most powerful battle mages seen on Golarion. To the east, if you can make it past the Mana Waste, you'll find the Obari Ocean, where the island nation of Jamalray resides off the coast. For today, we'll be looking to the west of Alkenstar City, toward the Shattered Range Mountains, home to mutated giants and the waters of the Ustrati Lake. On the shores of the Ustrati Lake sits the Gunworks, a large fortress-like structure that is the most well-known source of firearms for all of Golarion. Despite the dangers of having your local working environment be home to large mutated giants, the guards at the Gunworks have discovered it is better to keep them around and have them discourage intruders from investigating the area, even if the giants themselves aren't aware that they've become both the local security force and invasion deterrent. Whenever incursions from Geb seem likely, Alkenstar will drop strategic caches of either purposely defective or very outdated firearms in key locations for these giants to discover. Between the infighting of the giant tribes, this trickle of low-quality firearms will not only draw attention away from the Gunworks, but gunslinging giants are a highly effective tool for thinning out Gebite armies before they can even reach the streets of Alkenstar. Downstream from the Gunworks, you will come across the trading hub of Martel, just southwest of Alkenstar itself. Alkenstar has a constant and never-ending need for minerals, both mundane and exotic. As such, Martel formed out of the constant need for mineral import and trade, with local caravans and suppliers sending load after load of precious metals upriver to Alkenstar, forming a crucial link in the firearms supply chain. Martel was initially formed as a series of ornate bridge towers, which serve as landing bays capable of loading and unloading the airships that transport materials along the river. These towers naturally became home to Martel's banks, clearinghouses, and accounting groups, which makes financial transactions as seamless as possible. While laborers unload the ships below, the traders and brokers argue the finances above. Today, many of the rare metal veins closest to Martel are depleted, forcing mining companies to begin sending out expeditions out into the Shattered Range prospecting for new ore seams, or out into the Mana Wastes to scavenge the strange and dangerous ruins and rusted machinery of the Gebite and Nexian forces. The Martellians also feel relatively safe venturing into the Shattered Range due to their proximity to the Gunworks and the Clockwork Guardians they have patrolling their city. With the majority of the wasteland settlements are built along the Ustrati, the river itself can be its own source of danger. The waters are dangerously polluted from the heavy industry, and its surface is often blanketed by a foul smog. Below the surface, serpentine shadows dart back and forth, countless aquatic monsters and mutants unknown. Those foolish enough to try and drink from the water risk experiencing any number of mutations, assuming it doesn't kill them outright, and constant consumption has given rise to multiple settlements of mutated giantkin that call the banks of the Ustrati River their home. Despite its dangers, the water from the river is still a precious resource in Alkenstar, where it is collected, treated, and distributed through the city as drinking water. Without suitable access to Estradi Lake, Alkenstar would suffer both economically and ecologically. Approaching Alkenstar proper, the first thing new visitors to the city would notice is the bold, if not terrifying decision to build the city atop the 700-foot Hell-Fallen Cliffs, where the Estradi River plunges toward the Obari Ocean, forming the Alken Falls. The city's position on this eastern outcrop of the Shattered Range makes it an easily defensible spot for Shield Marshal snipers to keep a careful watch for scouts and warbands from Nex and Geb. Taking full advantage of the local geography, a massive turbine at the face of the waterfall generates immense electrical power that is then funneled into the city's numerous factories and production facilities. The huge mechanism running up the side of the falls is what locals have dubbed the Screw, both for its appearance and the taxes they were forced to pay for its construction. Completed in 4645 AR, the Screw is a massive clockwork contraption that lifts and lowers ships from cliff bottom to cliff top, making upstream journeys possible for cargo and passengers from the east. This process takes many hours, and an entire industry has sprung up around the Screws in the years since its construction. Nowadays, the Screw is occupied by many money changers, hawkers, entertainers, and tradespeople, creating the area that some locals cheerfully call the Hellside District. While the Hellside is home to a roaring business that deals with the merchants and travelers that regularly enter and exit the city, the wealthier members of society despise the fact that they have to pass through the noise and grime every time they return home from traveling. In 4588 AR, a young Nexian engineer named Ansel Alkenstar escaped into the Mana Wastes with an arrest warrant on his name. Despite the absurd dangers of this wasteland, he survived long enough to stumble upon the ruins of Dongunhold, where a ragtag community of refugees and outcasts had taken up residence in the ruins close to the surface. It is uncertain how, but in a short time the Nexian managed to rally these survivors under his leadership and push them to dive deeper into the hold, down into the deep dark below. There, the population of dwarves who used to occupy the hold were discovered, and Alkenstar was able to convince the dwarves to accompany him back to the surface and found a new civilization. How he managed to achieve the amazing feat of convincing an entire population of dwarves to not only uproot and leave their homes, but to do so to help complete strangers is a mystery. Today, you will hear countless songs preaching his powerful charisma, see beautiful artworks illustrating his grand speeches, and cheaply printed pamphlets telling of his wicked trickery, all claiming to be the real truth of what brought the dwarves back home to Dongun. Whatever truly happened in those dark halls, what is known is that Alkenstar returned to the surface having secured a partnership with the dwarves, and the dwarves brought with them their newest marvel, the firearm. Whether these early black powder weapons were invented or discovered may be lost to time, but in a short 13 years their powers helped them restore Dongunhold and the surrounding area to the standard of a grand dwarven hold, under the joint control of the dwarves and Alkenstar's people. The dwarves worked closely with the surface dwellers to begin construction on the gunworks, and the Duchy of Alkenstar was founded. On paper, Alkenstar is politically beholden to Nex, but in practice, Dongunhold and Alkenstar City are their own closely allied group within the Mana Wastes, beholden to no one. In 4620 AR, after 19 years of construction, the gunworks were completed and firearm production really began in earnest. Where before they were hidden archaic weapons wielded only by the dwarves, word of these black powder wonders spread, and soon all eyes were drawn to the cliffs of the wasteland. Raids began shortly after, but it wasn't until 4690 AR, 70 years after the gunworks was completed, that the Gorilla King of Usaro would launch a raid and steal the largest canyon the gunworks possessed as a trophy. These raids have given Alkenstar something of a siege mentality. With attackers on all sides and pressure from everywhere, the city is constantly on edge, just thriving to survive. Like its many clockwork inventions, Alkenstar City is constantly advancing, always researching, perfecting, and exploiting the newest advancements. They are constantly developing new ways to survive and thrive in the harsh reality of the mana waste, and this drive has led them to technological advancements the rest of Golarion has yet to even dream of. Religion is a part of Alkenstar as much as any other city in the world. For the most part, Abadar and Bry, gods of mercantilism and invention respectively, are worshipped for the importance of their domains to the city, such as the creation of the Whisper Sheets and other municipal projects. Aristil is worshipped for his followers' roles as hunters and gatherers for the city, while Aurori, the god of self-improvement and enlightenment, is also worshipped. Torag is the main deity that all the dwarves within Alkenstar at least give thanks to for their existence, if not celebrated as their main deity. Notably, you'll find that despite the chaotic wasteland they inhabit, gods of order and lawfulness are popular, which reflects on the people of the state, both the influence of the dwarves and the wider culture of craftsmanship and contracts. Within Alkenstar City, you will find a wildly advanced city that has its share of threats like any other locations across Golarion. Magical surges that can warp the weather, mechanical malfunctions that could injure at any moment, toxic pollution, rogue clockwork servants and saboteurs, union busters, and the occasional wasteland raider. While it may appear civilized, this isn't some oasis of peace in the wastes. Alkenstar City is split down the middle by the Ustrati River, and each district is wildly unique. To the east, you will have Skyside, home to the wealthy and gleaming towers of Alkenstar. To the west, you have the Smoke Side, a magically dead industrial portion of the city. While together the two districts keep the city moving, the tension between them also threatens to rip the city apart at its seams. At times, the single largest threat to Alkenstar is itself. Despite the tensions, Alkenstar is a surprisingly welcoming city, with many different languages and cultures forming a melting pot within its borders. It doesn't matter if you speak a different language as long as you can speak in the universal language of mathematics, engineering, or trade. However, Alkenstar is notoriously suspicious of spellcasters and mutants. Spellcasters are forced to register with the city guard, and they are forced to follow a strict curfew that keeps them near Blythier College, the nation's only official magic academy. Mutants, however, often suffer the worst discrimination out of anyone. They are flat out refused entry into the city, and unless they are escorted by a non-mutant companion, they are often openly fired upon until killed or at least driven away. However, mutants are not an official classification. There is no fixed criteria for mutants defined by the city, so anything from a human with a third arm to anything that does not resemble a common Golarion ancestry could fit the bill. Which honestly makes one wonder, does that blanket label risk being applied to the uncommon ancestries? Would a Shuni be welcome within Alkenstar, or would they be seen as some form of mutant canine and seen as a threat? Many residents of Alkenstar, from the wealthiest to the poorest, will plan their days around the Whisper Sheets. The Whisper Sheets are probability sheets that predict the magical weather patterns around the city, formed by a partnership between the temples of Abadar and Bry. For example, if they project an hour of bronze time, it means a higher chance for magical stability and predictable weather, while a prediction of surge time indicates a high likelihood of magical surges and climate fluctuations. The Bry Priest use horometrical rituals and statistics to generate these sheets, while the Abadarans handle the publication and subsequent distribution every day, free of charge. As the city has grown and evolved, so too have the sheets. In addition to weather statistics, the Whisper Sheets now include news updates, discussions on technology and politics, and educational material on science and mathematics, albeit with a not-so-subtle slant toward Abadarian and Bright values. This makes them valuable for the city's lower class who seek to educate themselves, but draws derision from the Alkenstar elite. Over in the sky side, where the temples can be found, the wealthy awake to a splendid breakfast while their advisors break down the whisper sheets for their businesses and political outlooks for the day. This is in sharp contrast to the lower class over in the smoke side, who have already been laboring for hours to prepare breakfast, tending to clockwork assistants and fetching the whisper sheets for the wealthy. During Bronze Time days, the wealthy are most active, willing to take risks they would avoid on more magically volatile days, such as trips outside the city or technological experimentation. Surge days, you may not even see the wealthy out and about, content to stay within their ivory towers and leave their tasks for the day to their servants. The smoke side of Alkenstar is simultaneously less and more impacted by the whisper sheets than the sky side. The smoke side of Alkenstar operates under a permanent null magic bubble, which allows them for the most part to ignore the bronze and surge hours. However, during surge time, the guards are redirected over to sky side, leaving the streets empty and ripe for the gangs of Alkenstar to exploit. So, surge time on sky side would mean increased gang violence, kidnappings, and violent crime over on smoke side. While sky side bunkers down to avoid the mana storms, the smoke side erupts into full-on gang wars. It's very common for law officers to entirely abandon their stations and to take up private security for the wealthy after working a few surge days. Due to the distance between smoke side and the sky side, which houses the temples producing these whisper sheets, it is often several hours before the smoke side of Alkenstar gets the sheets, putting them several hours behind the wealthy. Factory owners will force their workers to start early, no matter the weather, and when the unions do speak up, they are greeted with smiles and platitudes before the industry barons arrange for the disappearance of those union speakers. During Bronze Time, Smokeside becomes a peaceful district. Shield marshals and clockwork guardians patrol the street, which is when the Skysiders aim to enter the region to complete their tasks for the day. During the night, Smokeside becomes the entertainment district of Alkenstar. During the day, you may have a Smokesider who toils as a factory worker, but come nightside, they become casino hands, cooks, taxis, dancers, all to feed the appetite of visiting Skysiders in hopes to get them to part with a few precious gold. For much of the year, a mix of dust and smog enveloped the city-state of Alkenstar. The mana waste winds churn the Estrades' warm water into drizzling rains, which blow up into the Shattered Ranges peaks before dripping back to the Estrade, creating a magical fog that hugs the river's surface. This fog often drapes over the city, melting with the fumes and smog of the countless smokestacks to form a unique mixture of smog and muck. During spring, Alkenstar faces the river shiver, a malady that leaves its victims' limbs feverish while their heads freeze. Every pharmacist within the city does heavy business in alchemical potions and herbal remedies that supposedly prevents this sickness, but if they actually work is unknown. But within every cafe and tea house, you will find their own unique blend of mint and tea and other herbs that are, for sure, the only cure for the river shiver. In the summer, the fog is burned away by the stifling summer heat. However, Alkenstar does not have the time to enjoy this fog burning away, as large dust storms and acid hail replace it. To push things even further, summer is when the hill giants push their attacks the hardest, taking cover under the dust storm and acid sleet that rains upon them. They attack with stolen munitions and cannons that have scavenged from the city's own gunworks, pushing the city into a state of tense preparation. In the fall, this arcane fog returns and has the lucky benefit of creating extremely fertile soil, which Aristelian priests are quick to sell within Alkenstar. The city puts this soil to good use and produces a large amount of apples, avocados, and persimmons, as well as almonds, figs, grapes, and dates. Aristelians also venture from the city, seeking out and hunting creatures such as crocodiles and hippos, ibex and bison, quagga and elands. The stag god's blessing provides his followers with the greatly sought after ability to find livestock that has yet to be twisted by the mana waste. During the winter, the fog condenses into erratic ice storms, which commonly flash freeze entire patches of berries and grapes. But Alkenstar does not let these fruits go to waste. They gather these frozen berries and make them into a much sought after ice wine, and sell the wine over to the undead nation of Geb, where it is a highly sought after prize. As expected of the birthplace of firearms, all firearms that are uncommon or rare in other locations of Golarion can be found within Alkenstar or the Gunworks. Firearms up to level 18 can be commissioned at special orders from the Gunworks for a price. A bit of an aside, I have seen many on the internet who have upped the level on mechanical items that are available within Alkenstar while dropping the level of magical items that can be found there. From what I can see, there's no mechanical basis for this, but I do believe it adds a fun flavor to the region that is very lore appropriate. Nobles collect elaborately embellished dueling pistols and ornate muskets, while the guard and military perform more stripped down but more effective personal arms, such as flintlock pistols. Many in Alkenstar own a heirloom weapon that has been passed down by family members. Most citizens within Alkenstar are at least adequate with firearms due to a mandatory 2-year conscription as combatants and auxiliaries. From those outside of Alkenstar, you can volunteer for conscription, at which point you will become a full Alkenstar citizen. Those who are particularly daring or perhaps attention hogs volunteer for placement at the Gunworks, which endures the heaviest of raids. Placement during summertime operation, when raids are the heaviest, get each month of placement there counted twice, for the purpose of fulfilling one's military obligation. Despite the heavy dwarven presence, alcohol is largely avoided within Alkenstar. It isn't illegal, but the consumption of alcohol leads to reduced precision, bad decision making, and lowered lucidity, and when you live within a city of firearms, that is a very dangerous combination. Most Alkenstar citizens prefer to relax with a strong coffee or freshly brewed teas, both drinks that provide energy and a boost in alertness. Skysiders in particular enjoy their carefully brewed coffees, flavored with expensive spices, floral nectars, or bittersweet chocolates. Coffee in itself is already an expensive beverage due to the import costs from Katapesh or Jamalray, but the wealthy have created coffee rituals they follow as a way to pass time with business partners and to show off their wealth. Smokesiders rely on tea during the day to keep them moving, but they do enjoy a cup of coffee as a nightcap, claiming that the heated beverage helps them relax after a hard day's work. The water from the hydro plant is purified via steaming, which, while cheap, also makes the water taste flat. As a result, many drinks within Alkenstar are sweetened and flavored excessively to overcome the acidic tang that results from the process. Education and crafting apprenticeships are heavily valued within Alkenstar, where many smokesiders see education as a reliable means out of poverty. Industrialists also view education as a way to ensure they are producing the most intelligent future staff they can. Schools, colleges, and institutes of all sorts can be found within Alkenstar, teaching everything from alchemical recipes and modular designs to steam bending wood and industrial kiln maintenance. Alkenstar has also heavily invested in the research and creation of military technologies. These advancements in ordnance have created many well-known weaponry, such as the Great Maw of Rovagug, an immense cannon capable of launching massive 3-ton explosive shells. Originally built into the cliff walls looking out over the Mana Waste, the Maw has now been moved to the Gunworks, where it is used yearly to hold back the giant raids every summer. Nearly all of the citizens of Alkenstar belong to some form of secret society, part mutual aid association and part borderline criminal communities. Example of these societies are the Lethos Clan, a collection of brilliant engineers who operate in direct competition with the plans of the Gunworks, or the Firewind Friendly Society, which handles cremation, funeral services, and insurance payouts for its members' families, by any means needed. This practice has led to many within Alkenstar having stronger ties to their chosen clans than their own family members. While many provide benign services like job positions and scholarships, some deal in more sinister deeds, such as vote buying, union busting, speedy evictions, and even contract killings. The Istrati clans who assisted Ansel Alkenstar in founding Alkenstar have heavily inspired the culture and philosophical views that the city has developed in the years since its founding. As a whole, Alkenstar is quick to adopt that which makes the city stronger, and equally quick to cut away what isn't working or drags the city down. Since its founding, the city is a unique blend of Gurundi traditional hierarchy with new contemporary ideas of meritocracy and corporatism. Alkenstar has a healthy appetite for imports, and it's always eager to import the newest products, news, and fashion trends from the rest of the world. Merchants work tirelessly to import what they can or to replicate consumer goods that they can't import reliably. Visitors may be surprised to find advocates for the latest Jamel diets or Thuvian floral supplements. If there is a fad, fashion, or trend somewhere on Galarian, it's likely that it has at least passed through Alkenstar. Unlike much of the rest of Galarian, the people of Alkenstar are quick to turn to innovation and invention to solve their problems, instead of magical might. They pride themselves on their technical know-how and see magic as a cheat for proper innovation. A popular saying best shows this idea. Industry can make cities out of wastelands, while indolence makes wastelands out of cities. In the 2 centuries since Alkenstar was founded, debates over the nature of humanity threaten to erupt within the city. Surrounded as they are by the many mana-waste mutants, clockwork servants, and undead neighbors, the people of Alkenstar cling to the idea that natural humanity, that the living form without change or alterations, is the apex of possibility. However, this pride also has a darker side in the feelings of personal merit that Alkenstar exhibits. Many believe that those who succeed deserve to succeed in the first place, and the only reason people fail is because they lack some form of internal merit. Like the clockwork creations the city is famous for, you are expected to improve on yourself like you would fine-tune up machinery. If you don't, you fail, and you deserved to fail. This emphasis on fortune creates a city that harshly handles the victims of misfortune. The poor, infirm, or wounded are often treated as lazy or indolent. They are quick to blame them for not trying hard enough to overcome their circumstances, rather than emphasizing with those less fortunate. Othinth Lonelier, a human cleric, is the current High Clockmother of the Bry Faith. She has used her prowess with the Faith and Alkenstar technology to improve the Auburn District's advancements, as well as strengthen House Lonelier and the Temple of Bry. However, as expected, this has also earned her numerous enemies. However, she views it as the role of the High Clockmother to worry more about pushing technology ever further than worrying about stepping on the toes of those around her. Espara is one of Smokeside's numerous orphans. However, this orphan holds a surprising amount of power under her command. She has managed to forge an impressive web of loyalty across various orphans, runaways, and outcasts, gaining the favor of many different gangs. This collection of gangs now call themselves Espara's Paladins, mostly in mockery of the normally arrogant ideals of true paladins. However, Espara is more gifted in motivating her followers than truly leading them, and cracks are beginning to show within their ranks. Professor Radpole is an elderly gnome who has proven his genius time and time again by repurposing old Nexian artifacts into modern engineering miracles. His most impressive feat is the overhaul of the 10-wound hydro plant. Before, the hydro plant primarily served only the powerful within Alkenstar, such as governments and guilds. However, by overhauling and increasing its efficiency, the hydro plant is now capable of supplying and purifying water to even the poor regions of Alkenstar. An added benefit of this water purification has directly aided Radpole's unseen muse, a river spirit by the name of Ustrasila. Before the Geb and Nex war, she and her sisters would swim freely and play in the river's water. But the war killed off nature in the mana waste, and with it, her sisters. Seeing Radpole fight to purify the water has given her new hope, and though she still mourns her sister, she hopes to one day see the water as pure as it used to be. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you pop in for my next lecture. Before we headed out today, I want to take a moment and thank my Discord and Patreon supporters. Big thank you to Drake, Havoc, and I Share Comics for supporting me on Patreon, and Kaz for supporting me on YouTube. I also want to say thank you to Mike, my proofreader, who is the main reason my videos have much less stuttering and tongue-tying in them, but sound much more pretentious. If you would like to see your name added to this list in the future, you can check out the links in the description of these videos for ways to support me. As a bit of a bonus meta moment, if you look at the settlement information from the Impossible Lands sourcebook, you'll notice a change if you are familiar with Alkenstar from 1st edition, specifically the original Inner Sea World Guide. However, I believe this to be an editorial mistake. In the Inner Sea World Guide from 1st edition, it states that Alkenstar has a population of 53,600 people, with the majority of them being Gurundi or Kelishite ethnicities, but we do not get an exact percentage for each ethnicity. However, in the Impossible Lands book from 2E, it states that 93% of the population is Dwarven now, with only 4% human and 3% all other ancestries. However, Louis Losa was asked about the population and stated that it is a mistake that may be corrected in the future. Not a world-ending mistake by any means, but it was interesting to see that the entire city had changed race so drastically at first glance.